Welcome to this DevOps chat. We're really lucky to have Allan Kelly joining us. Hi, Allan.
Hello.
I first came across your work when we were at London Lean Kanban together, and you did a fantastic talk on NoProjects. I always remember it because I got my iPhone up to take a picture of you to put on Twitter, and you paused your presentation and posed very nicely for the photo before then carrying on without batting an eyelid. It didn't interrupt your flow at all. So yeah, I always remember that moment. So thank you very much for joining us. We're going to talk a bit about value and how teams should decide what to work on. But before we do that, perhaps you can tell us a little bit about your background, what your experience has been, and what you're working on now.
So I was one of those kids in the 80s who got a ZX81 and the BBC Micro, and I taught myself to program, on all of that. And then I did the proper thing, and I went to university, and they taught me to program in this strange top-down fashion rather than the kind of, I always describe it as middle-out kind of fashion. Which thankfully we seem to have rediscovered. And then I spent about 10 years after I graduated, coding for money, back in the C++ day. I finished that spell with a couple of years in California, but I coincided that with dot-com bust. I wanted dot-com boom, I got dot-com bust, so never talking about investment decisions. Came back to the UK, twiddled my thumbs a bit, what do I do now? And some friends persuaded me to go and do an MBA, which to most developers are like, you can't do that. Well, tell me now, a programmer with an MBA is a really scary thing for everyone else. Programmers don't trust you because you've got that management thing, and management don't trust you because you're still a programmer in there. So then I got in with an enlightened company, a bit of programming, a bit of team leading, got into product management, introduced the agile idea. And then one reason or another, I became an independent consultant, and now I do get around the world. I've been out to Australia and the US a few times. Most of my work's in the UK. I'm London based, so London works best of all. I do a mixture of out and out training and consulting. The world seems to be giving me more consulting work these days than training work. I turn up, I talk to people, and maybe I have an effect, and maybe they just think I'm crazy, but some of them ask me back, so I must be doing something right.
Fascinating. So, and yeah, speaking of crazy then, so the talk I saw you give was on the NoProjects idea,
Yeah.
and it was a complete eye opener for me, and I remember sharing the video with colleagues here because, to be honest, much of my background and the background of my colleagues was we've really grown up with this idea that projects are the be all and end all. So I know we're not going to talk about it at length, but perhaps just tell us a little bit about NoProjects and what it means and why it came into being.
Well, there's kind of two angles here, and the second one I'll talk about second. Yeah. That gives a nice segue into the value conversation. So with software, we work on a project, and we work on a project, and we work on a project. And some of us even move between projects, particularly if you're like in the contract market or something. Mm-hmm. But when software's successful, it continues. It has a life, it takes on a life of its own. It's almost organic. Instead, in the agile world, we like to talk about organic growth, start with something that's working and then enhance it and grow it and build. When software is successful, people keep using it, and they want enhancements, and they want changes, and it may have been written on Windows, 3.1, and it has to go to Windows NT, and Windows NT has to go to Windows Vista, and then it has to work with voice over IP systems, and it has to become web enabled, and it lives and it continues. And successful software is like you or me. It's living and it's growing, and if we treat it badly, if we feed it too much, you'll get overweight and difficult to change. And if we go down to the gym every day, it has a life cycle, but the life cycle doesn't fit the project model. If you look at, so I know lots of project managers will complain about this, but if you actually look at the fundamentals of what the project model is built on, right at the heart of it is this idea of temporary organizations and temporary things, and you do something and you bring it to a completion. And I'm not disputing there are such things in this world that come to a completion and you move on, you do something else. What I'm saying is software ain't one of them. Dead software, unused software, stops changing. But we don't actually want that. We want our software to live, and we need to allow our software to change and evolve. And applying this idea that it's kind of temporary is the wrong model. And I think that leads to all sorts of bad thinking and bad reasoning. And a lot of the continuous delivery folks rapidly pick up on the technical debt question. Because the project model has a deadline, because it is temporary, it leads people to think, yeah, once we get across the finish line, it doesn't matter what we have to do to get across the finish line. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The other thing it leads to, where this segues into our main conversation, if you look at the project success criteria, on schedule, on budget, on features, quality, that third one's a little bit, changed from time to time. There's no value there. Where's the value? We want to be talking about delivering value, delivering benefit to our customers. And yet the project success criteria don't have it. And buried in the project success criteria is the assumption that in the beginning, we know what good, we know what benefit, we know what value is. And everything around that temporary organization is about unlocking the benefit we've recognized at the beginning. When you get particularly into continuous delivery model, it becomes apparent that it's continual. You are doing something, you're finding some value, you're finding some more potential value, and you keep going, you keep going, you keep going. In which case, those on schedule, on budget, on feature criteria, the project model don't fit. You put these two things together, and we've undermined the whole project model. And I think a lot of our thinking around software is steeped in the project model. We relax these two main assumptions and we start to see that our management model and our mental assumptions don't always line up. And particularly when we push on the value question, are you delivering value, that this kind of thing becomes really clear and almost painful. And one of the things we have to do in the community is kind of two sides of the same coin. One is to unlearn the project model, and the other is to learn a new model. And the kind of good news is an awful lot of projects on software are followed by another project on the same software base with the same people, but it has a different accounting code. And that's followed by another project with a different accounting code, but largely the same people on the same software. And actually, a lot of teams are doing the right thing. But I reason that because they dress it up in a project management model, it leads to suboptimal behavior. Well, in a nutshell, no project.
Yeah. No, that's a great answer. And as you say, you were saying let's come on to value then. So perhaps it's good for you to tell us a little bit about your thoughts on value and how that affects the way a team works and how it should affect the way we prioritize work and what we do next.
So I guess the first disclaimer is, there's two disclaimers. One, value is the wrong word. The real word is benefit. Value has one syllable left and there's a lot less to say. And for an awful lot of organizations, benefit is going to be a hard measurable number of value. So if I say value, I know I should be saying benefit, and I should be saying it's not just money, it's also whatever your organization considers beneficial, which may in some cases be learning and risk management. And I always remember years ago having a lady from the Department for International Development on a training course, and her saying, for us, government and about improving the lives of people in the world, benefit and value is not money. It could be clean drinking water. How many people are clean drinking water? So, caveat number one, every time I say value, I accept that I should be saying benefit and I should be saying an awful lot more, but we say value is kind of shorthand.
Yep.
The second question is value. You have to define what value is. Partly for some of the reasons I've just said. partly because of strategic questions, partly because organisations are trying to do multiple things. You need to think hard about what value is to your organisation and your team. And I don't want to pretend that's an easy question. It gets easy when you can put a number on it, where you can put pounds, shillings and pence, euros, dollars, whatever. If you can do that, it does become easier. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about, for shorthand, we're going to assume you can put a value on it, you can put a number on it.
Right, yep.
But I also recognise that could be another conversation all on its own right. So the idea is we've got these teams. How does a team know what to work on? You know, particularly if we've relaxed the on schedule, on budget, all those other kind of things. What is it a team should be doing? Because there's always competing needs for a team. If it was just a case of having a list of requirements and going from page 1 to page 100, life would be easy. Teams have competing needs on them. And also, our experience shows that as we do stuff, we learn more about how people are using it. We learn more about where there are other opportunities. And it's a learning experience as well about what's beneficial to people. And so all these inputs, all these things are flowing in. And so sometimes talk about continual analysis or continual requirements. If delivery is continuous, the requirement process is continuous. But the parameters, the forces at work are going to change on them. So really what we want to know is we want to answer at a micro level, when you go into your sprint planning meeting, you want to say, what should we be doing this iteration? And given all these competing needs, how are the team, particularly product owners, business analysts, going to decide what we should do? Unfortunately, I think in most a lot of organisations, decibel management rules. It's he who shouts loudest, he who shouts and is the most senior person. And I understand why that is, but as an engineer, I'd like to make it a little bit more rational. And I also think when people can appreciate the views and needs of others, they are more likely to accept that somebody else should go first. And I think the key to this, and yeah, I'm being completely honest, I'm drawing on the work of Don Reineston, people like that, people who've gone before me, is to try and work out what is the value here. Where is the value in the work we're doing? And when we're looking at, because there's always more work you could do, when we look at all the work the team could do, particularly at the sprint level, where is the value this week? Yeah, and then as you move beyond the sprint level to the release plan, which I like to call release plans quarter plans now, because in a continual delivery environment, if you're releasing 7 times a day, the release plan, so I've taken to call in the next level up of planning a quarter plan, the idea that it's a quarter of a year and it's a rolling thing, and beyond that, your roadmap, your whatever. But all of these need to be guided by something. What it isn't is schedule and cost and all the rest. So we're looking for value to give us an overarching aim here, while recognising that while value may well be numbers, pounds, shillings and pence, it could be something else we've defined to be value. And so we want to guide all of these planning activities and the decisions on what we're working on towards delivering value, which is benefit to the organisation, which is probably a commercial organisation that probably wants to make money. Yeah. So I would like, my dream is that whenever a user story, a product backlog item, whatever you call them in your place, whenever this work is presented to the development team, before that has to give an effort estimate, it's given a value estimate, and they are told how much value this thing is worth to the organisation. I've got a couple of exercises. I won't go into detail because I want to keep them for people to experience themselves. But I've got some exercises where I ask people to put effort estimates on work, but I can seed them by telling them how much the value is. And in the same room, I can give 2 different teams a request for work, which is the same request, but I dress it up in different value statements. And the effort estimates and sometimes the cost estimates that come out of these teams are massively different. I've given the same story dressed up with different numbers of dollars, to one team and got an estimate of 1.6 million euros in 3 years of development, while the team on the other side were killing themselves laughing because they were going to suggest 4 weeks and 20,000 euros. But when you strip away the numbers, they had the same story. So, and engineers know this. Engineers confronted with a request, they know that sometimes the right way to implement this is a fully fledged content management system.
Yeah.
And other times, give them a Dropbox, give them a shared Dropbox, and depending on what's the value here, both solutions the right one. That also triggers off a load of, I hate to say it, MVP, minimal viable product type conversations, fidelity questions. There's different ways of thinking of this when you're coaching in different values.
What I was just going to say, I suppose coming back to some of the things we talked about with Pavel at the start of last month, thinking as well about team engagement and motivation. I'm assuming that if you can articulate clearly to someone what the value of this thing is, then they will be more interested in working on it potentially.
Oh yes, and it's some people are motivated by making big bucks. Other people are motivated by doing good in the world. Other people are motivated by doing innovative stuff. And I think, if you're talking about in Agile we often talk about values. Thinking about people with the right values to join your team. Now, think about it. If your team knows the value it's pursuing, your team isn't just setting out to make the company lots of money. Your team is setting out to revolutionize the taxi service. Then there are some people who don't say, taxis really annoy me. I really want to be part of changing the world of taxis. Value is an important values, and Pavel's absolutely right. That's a key way for hooking into people's motivation.
And it's interesting what you mentioned earlier about if you start to analyze value and put numbers on it, often people will concede that yes, I can understand that, although personally I'd quite like this working on. I remember early on implementing Kanban with a team, and one of the things we did was have a weekly meeting with the support manager, any project managers, and also the delivery manager. And what surprised me was once we got into the swing of things, how often, if there was an urgent project requirement, the support manager would say, yes, I can see that takes priority. Whereas if there was a defect affecting 20 customers, a project manager would say, yeah, that takes priority. Once people could see it, people would make quite decisions that I think before that we were used to more of everyone fights for resources on their thing, and always sees their thing as the most important.
When people can appreciate where other people are coming from, the value other people are attributing to it, they become more, I don't know what's very flexible, amenable, reasonable. And I also know that people will say, how could you reduce all of these to one number? How could you say the request from those guys, which is apples, is worth more than the request from these guys, which is oranges? And I know that's true, and I know it's difficult. I know sometimes you can't boil it down to numbers, but I'm just going to point out, it happens, having been in Ireland yesterday, I have a euro note in front of me. I'll show it to the camera there. That's a euro note. And it's really difficult to boil things down to just a number, but your value to the company gets boiled down to this number every month. The value of your product to your customers largely gets boiled down to that. Yep. I know it's difficult, but if we can talk about these relative values and how they can be merged into a common currency. I'm not saying the euro is the ideal common currency. Euro is an example of a currency where perhaps you shouldn't have boiled everything. When I got to stick with dollars and pounds, they work quite well. At least talking these things through.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the point, isn't it? Sometimes just trying to put a number on it. So yes, if I value my hat at $6 million whilst valuing my house at £3, then you would have a conversation about, well, is that really right? But at least you'd have something to form a discussion around. So but kind of, if we make that assumption that we can put some kind of number on the value of doing some work, how should a team then prioritize the work? Is it as simple as saying work on the highest value thing first, or?
Well, there's an argument for that. There's an argument for putting in a high priority, put them in value order, and just working through them. And for some people that might be right. I prefer to think, though, that once you've got them in value order, once you've stacked them all up, that's your straw man. That's when you sit down and you look at these things and you say, this may be the simple way of doing them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't we do them in this way? And there may be very rational arguments why you wouldn't do them in the simple value order. This is also where you start to touch on cost of delay.
All right.
Suppose you've got, for argument's sake, you've got your 20 stories out there. They've all got value on them and you've ranked them. You can start to say, look, these high value stories are the highest value, so we should go after them first. But you might also notice that high value stories won't actually deliver the value for 6 months. It doesn't matter whether you deliver them tomorrow or next month. The total value they deliver will not change as long as you deliver it in 6 months. There may be some other stories further down the stack, which if you don't deliver them in a near time, are going to lose their value. So it's like, you go to the supermarket and sometimes you've got the best before dates on things.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And, if I'm going to eat this, if I'm shopping for tonight, I don't need to worry about whether the best before date is tomorrow or next week, because I'm going to buy it, I'm going to eat it. If you're buying something and you think, I'm not going to eat this till the end of next week, or like I did the other week, family were going away on holiday. I thought, when we come back, we're going to go for plain late. I want soup in the house. I deliberately went through the soups in my local supermarket and found the soups with the long sell-by date on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I knew I didn't need them for a while. They can wait. So just because something has a low value, what's the perishability of that value? Is that low value the same today, tomorrow, next week?
Yep.
Or does that value perish? In which case, it might make sense to do that one early, provided, of course, the high value items aren't going to perish at a faster rate.
Right. Yeah.
And you can start. So you get your items you have a good conversation while you're having value conversations. Then when you've got them stacked up, and you can start to have these cost to delay values. And I don't know about you, Dave, but I find cost to delay and Don Ramsden's stuff is fantastic. But trying to explain it to people, a lot of people have real problems taking it on and absorbing it, and particularly when you're talking about, a rough backlog. I find that when you actually put a number, and it almost doesn't matter what the number is, once you put a number on a story or some other feature, and you can start talking about how that number may change over time, people get it. While it's abstract, people can't get it. Once you give it some concrete feel to it, people get it and people can reason about it. It's almost like a light switch going off. You can say, move this story back a month. So the other thing, touch on something we're going to talk about is, how do you get those initial values on in the first place? And there's a rational way. You can go off and you can do your business analyst can weigh all the forces and put them on there. And great. You can't always do that. And as someone pointed out to me the other day, actually getting a return on investment on a story is really difficult. The other way, it's just estimation. We've been estimating effort for years. Why don't we just estimate the value onto stories? So this is what I've increasingly been doing with teams, and I just draw directly on our traditional effort planning poker. I combine it with Dragon's Den. If your listeners are in America, Shark Tanks, it's called Money Angels, somewhere. It goes by different names. In the show, you've got some entrepreneurs who want to pitch an idea, and you've got some investors who have some money to give. Entrepreneurs come in, they pitch their idea, the investors quiz them, rip holes in it, And at the end, the investors have to say how much money, if any, they would put into this thing.
Yeah.
That's what I do. So I get the teams together, and sometimes I really, particularly in training exercise, I really hype up the Dragon's Den stuff. If I'm doing with real clients, I might make a bit more gentle. So I'll get some entrepreneurs. I'll tell them, you're the entrepreneurs. You've got your stories. You've got your idea for this product. Line everyone up with as investors. Hand out the planning poker cards. I get the entrepreneurs to pitch the idea for the thing they want to build. Investors get to quiz them. Then we take one story and I'll baseline. I'll say this story is 10,000 business points, Irish dollars, Louisiana shillings, I'll invent a coin. It's 10,000.
Yeah.
And your planning poker cards are denominated in thousands of whatever the currency is, Louisiana shillings. We put that on the wall. We write 10,000 and put it on the wall. Then the entrepreneurs have to pitch their stories to the investors. They pitch them, the investors get to ask questions. Usually there's another entrepreneur behind the scenes, and they'll be quickly writing out new user stories as the investors see opportunities, and they'll be changing them. And just like you do in planning poker, we vote on them. I average the numbers for speed, write a number on there, put it on the wall above or below the other stories. And if the value is the value I already have, I'll usually push them more or less. And we just roll with that. At the end of the day, it's an estimate. I know it's not perfect, but an estimate is an estimate. You've then got your lineup of high to low value. You can talk about it, you can reason about it, you can do your cost of delay. In the setting, because you've got this Dragon's Den Shark Tank setting, because to give the technical term, it's a war game. You've licensed people, us and them. And people shoot holes in it. Not only is it good for talking about value, but you also flush out requirements, you flush out specifications. I'm at the point now where I would love to see every product owner, every product manager do no business case, no PowerPoint, just pitch the thing you're building to the team. Yeah, it'd be great if you could have other product owners, senior business people there, all the stakeholders. But you know what? A lot of the benefit you get just by having the team there. Whoever you can have is good. Some audiences will be better than others. Once you've got the numbers, you can start to have all the other conversations.
And I suppose, just like with effort estimation, part of the key is you're getting a comparative idea of value. So it's not so much, the accuracy is not, it's not so important whether it's £1,000 or £1,010. It's, is this story worth twice as much as this one? So you'll get that, I guess, quite quickly by going through that exercise.
There's one other kind of benefit which you and me and listeners can appreciate, but don't talk about it too much. The people, when the people giving the value estimates aren't actual developers, they get to live in a developer's shoes for a couple of hours.
Oh, yes, yeah.
They squirm just the same. How can you estimate this? I can't tell how much this is. You need to give me more detail. And all those arguments that they have complained about developers giving for the last 40 years suddenly stop coming out of their mouth.
So we have an opportunity for people learning about each other's challenges in each other's roles, which I guess can only be a good thing. So I suppose, because I'm conscious of time, the one thing I just did still want to ask you about, because it caught my eye in one of your slide decks online, was the concept of deadlines being analog, which I guess may relate to some of these things you've been saying about cost of delay.
I think it flows logically from cost of delay, and if I ever get a chance to speak to Don about it, I must do. But if you think about it, in a traditional project setting, there's some business value attributed to something, and there's a date on it. There's an implicit date. And we agile people come along and sort of say, well, early delivery, you can start to get the benefit sooner, which implies more benefit. And then we know plenty of projects that have missed their deadlines. And somehow the value is still there.
Yep.
So deadlines are obviously a bit elastic. Once you apply cost of delay thinking and you realise that delivering something now may be worth more than delivering something at a later date, Some things don't change their value, as I was saying before. What are we doing? We're talking at the end of August. If we were introducing a Christmas toy, it may make no difference whether we introduce it on the 1st of September or the 1st of October. We may make the same revenue. The deadline for that thing is slightly elastic. However, if we deliver on the 1st of November, we'll lose some sales. Deliver on the 1st of December, we'll lose more sales. Deliver on the 1st of January, we ain't going to sell much. There's a different value associated with different delivery dates. And one of the things to think about is, when does this, again, like the best before and the sell-by dates in the supermarket, there may be a best before date, a date where if you can have it, you'll capture all the value. After that date, value may be declining, and there may be a sell-by date. Do not eat this thing after this date.
Yep.
And over the course of that, how does the value change? And when you talk to the business, how do they see the value changing? Because we as developers know that creating smaller things is quicker, is faster, is easier. And it may well be that delivering less than the total is asked for by an earlier date unlocks some of that value. Delivering the whole thing that's been asked for, we may be pushing against that sell before date.
Yeah.
And we may be able to unlock some of the value sooner. And if value is declining, the longer we leave it to deliver more of the thing, the less of the value we're going to get. And you can start to see how you can start to think about a curve, which shows, the more you deliver, the more value you've got. But if the value available is declining, there's going to be a sweet spot. So there's all sorts of ways to think about this. So, deadlines are elastic by value, best before dates, sell before dates in the supermarket.
That's the supermarket analogy for it. But it's great thinking. I see what you're saying, that really this idea of if you deliver it after a deadline, you've failed completely. And I've even known project managers to get worried about delivering early or with less effort. But
it's there.
But yes, the reality is it's not as simple, it's not as black and white as saying it has to be delivered by this date. What we should be looking for is what, with the capability we have, delivers the most value over time. And again, I suppose that comes into play as well. Sometimes you don't have the choice in the capability. Sometimes you are limited by circumstances and what you have, and it's actually about making the absolute best of what you can deliver. So
again, if you cling to the project model, you don't get these insights. The project model is saying all of this value by a single date.
Yeah.
Once you relax those assumptions, you have a richer conversation. There may be a date by which late delivery beyond that date has no value.
Yeah. Fabulous. So, been really interesting catching up with you, Alan. Thank you so much for taking part in the interview, and I'm really looking forward as well to the Twitter chat itself and seeing what other people's views are, and of course your views on the question. So, thanks again, Alan. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. I'll speak to you on the Twitter chat.